Hello and welcome to another Crafty Snipers Airsoft video reviews. Today's video is going to be on the WE XDM 45. Now, I have been doing some review videos beforehand, however I basically just ran through the facts, ran through the information, and videos went up online. I was happy at the time, but having spoken to a few people, I basically decided to do some kind of new format for my review videos. So when it comes to guns, airsoft guns, I'm going to be splitting the video into external review, internal review, a magazine review, and my personal conclusions of this particular gun, because obviously all these guns so far are out of my personal collection. Maybe one day we'll get into reviewing other people's guns, other companies' guns, but for the time being it's just my rather large collection to keep us going. So, anyway, without further ado, the review of the WE XDM 45. Now this is going to be the external part of the video, so we're just going to be talking literally the externals, what's on the outside of this particular gun. Now, externally speaking, this gun is actually a very different style of gun to what is normally out there. I mean, there is quite a few XDMs out there in the world now, but in airsoft terminology, when people want a handgun, they usually go for a high capper style weapon which looks like a 1911, which they're fine, don't get me wrong, they're very, very good guns. I personally went down the route of a Glock 17, which again is a gun that's out there in the thousands in airsoft terminology. When this gun came out, I was very, very interested in it. For some unknown reason, this gun just kind of really floated my boat. It's a very aggressive looking handgun. You've got lots of grip parts on it, and generally speaking, if you're used to a Glock, you can kind of get used to an XDM. Externally speaking, you can actually see quite a few different handguns and their traits in the XDM. Me personally, this might not work for everyone, but the slide does remind me a lot of the Glock style Glock style slide even. It does kind of just reminds me of the old Glock 17s. For those of you that are used to 1911s, you have and I can't think what the terminology for these things are. I'm just going to call it a rear safety. I dare say there's probably a technical name out there which you guys will put up quite happily in the comment section. But that is an actual functioning safety device which was copied off the 1911. You can also see up to a certain point at the front end the way the barrel and well, just the end of this gun, it does also remind you a bit of the 1911s. So in reality, I do believe it was Springfield Armories that designed the XDM. They borrowed heavily from quite a few different firearms, handguns that are out there in the real world. So therefore, the airsoft version is going to be just the same. When it comes to the looks and the grip, the feeling of this grip actually really does work very well for me. I mean, when you buy this handgun, you'll actually get this section here is a back strap, and you have, I do believe it's 3 back straps in your XDM 45 package. Now what this allows you is to suit the back portion even of the slide to your hand. If you have a very big hand like myself, you're going to want to get the quite small back strap onto this gun. If you've got a small hand and you want to try and fill out fill out the grip, you're going to want to get the large back strap on. They're quite easy to put on. I mean, I'd put this on. You've got basically a pin that goes through the back. You're not going to see that very well, but there is a pin there. Take the pin out, back strap comes off, put the new one on, put the pin back in, and in all the times I've had this gun, which is about 2 years now, the pin's never come out, never shown any signs of it's going to come out, and the back strap is on there very firmly and there's no signs of wobble or anything. So when it comes to the material side of the externals, in airsoft terms, especially on WE guns, I haven't held every single WE handgun, but like I said, I've got the Glock 17, which is WE, and I'm also kind of basing a little bit off that onto the XDM. The slide is all metal. I do believe, I can't think what the exact materials are of it, but it is an all metal slide. The grip and the lower receiver section of the handgun, that's all plastic. Now, when I say plastic, again, I don't know what the exact formula is for this plastic, but it is absolutely rock solid. There's no creaking in the plastic. All the bits and pieces that need to move, i.e. the trigger, the mag release, sorry, that's not the trigger, that's the back safety, rear safety even, but that, the trigger, the mag release, and even, you know, up to a point, the slide release, they all move, but there's no looseness in the way this gun has been manufactured. So, you know, you're going to get this gun and you're going to rack it around, and it is quite a violent process firing one of these guns off. Obviously, like I said, the slide is going to go backwards and forwards, so it is quite violent on the airsoft gun, but nothing's come loose over the years that I've used it. That being said, this is just a secondary, this is a last ditch weapon. Me personally, when I'm pulling out a handgun, I've run out of ammunition or I've run out of a magazine of my main gun, and I literally pull this gun out, blast out a whole magazine, generally in the direction of where the enemy is, and then run like heck. Hopefully giving me time to reload my primary. So this gun hasn't been used a lot, but in the use it has been, it's been very well and nothing's come loose of it. We'll also cover the controls, if you can call them that, under the external section. Like I say, you have the trigger, which is a two-stage trigger, I think they can call it like that. You actually have, and you can see, a middle section of the trigger here that needs to be pressed in when you want to fire the gun. There's many things you need to do. You can't just literally grab the gun, rack the slide back and fire off. Literally, you have to rack the slide, obviously, have the rear safety pressed in with your the webbing of your thumb, which then very neatly, there's a little groove just here, which is lovely because you can just rest your thumb into it and, you know, everything's nice and secure. Now that's been pressed in, the trigger needs to be completely pressed. You can't just grab the end of it, the tip of it, because it still will not fire. If you grab hold of the whole trigger, pull the trigger back, the gun will fire. Another way of telling you that this gun will fire when the trigger is pulled is there is a little pin. I don't know if you can see just in the top there, it's a little pin there. I'll get rid of the magazine because that has got gas in it. When the pin is in the fully, shall we say, seated position, i.e. there's nothing stuck out the side, nothing stuck out the back here, that means the gun will not fire. Obviously, like I said, there's magazines not in it, but what I can do is when you rack the slide back, you can now see that the pin is protruding out the rear end of this gun. I don't know whether you can see that particularly well, but there is about 1.5 millimeters worth of pin sat out. Now that tells you when your gun's in your holster and you pull it out and you go, oh, I wonder if this thing's live, if it's going to fire, whatnot. Ah, yes, the pin's out, this gun will now fire, and so forth. You hear that click. That if the magazine was in there with gas, that gun would have fired. Really, that covers it for the external. I mean, oh yes, there is one more thing. Well, it's another safety. We love safety in airsoft. Not only do you have the real safeties that the real XDM has, you also have an airsoft style safety, which is also on the WE Glock 17. I don't know whether it's on every single WE handgun, but we're going to call this one the well, we're just going to call it the airsoft seal, airsoft safety even, which is this little device down here, this little metal strip here. This actually has a serial number on it. I'm not sure whether it's a unique serial number to this gun or whether it's just on every single gun. That is actually a safety, and if you want to physically make this gun not fire, other than taking a magazine out of the thing, you literally just grab the metalwork and put it down. When it's facing the rear end of the gun, doesn't matter. I mean, like I say, I'm not holding the rear safety, nothing happens. I'm now holding the rear safety, trigger still does not want to go back. So that is now a physical way of saying that gun will not fire. I could put a magazine in it, could rack the slide back, nothing's going to happen. So like I say, we all love a bit of safety in airsoft. I have been around a few guns that have gone off when they shouldn't have, and things like that would guarantee that would not happen. But let's face it, safety is your finger sometimes. Right, internally speaking, these are actually quite simple guns. Obviously, they're not like an electric airsoft gun. They don't have a gearbox or anything like that, or a motor. All your gubbins that makes this gun work is sat in here. Now, how are you going to get to this? How are you going to adjust your hop up, for instance? That's the basic thing of an airsoft gun. If it was an M4, for instance, you would pull the charging handle back, and there's a little dial, but don't dial it, put the charging handle back into its original position, start firing. These are a little bit more difficult. On this, you have a functioning slide lock, which is this device just here. So when you want to put the slide back into the rear position and hold it back, you rack the slide back like so, lift the slide lock up, and the slide conveniently now sits in the rear position. Now this is the position the gun will take when if you have a magazine in it and ammunition in it, and you just fired off your last BB out of this gun will now sit in that position. Okay, so what's that telling you is you're out of ammo. So it's a very good way of telling you you can't fire any more out of this. Literally get another magazine, whack it in, press the slide lock release, gun shoots forward, that will take the next BB up into the chamber and you'll be able to fire. So, like I said, when it comes to internally changing your hop up, put the slide back into the rear position. Now, I've been practicing this off the camera and it works perfectly. Now when it's on the camera, you watch this not work. Right, at the front, just in front of your slide lock by about 1.5 inches, you have this device here. This is a switch, or lever even. When the gun is in the rear position, or the slide is in the rear position like a so, you can lift that up. So it goes well, looks like that, it goes up, goes vertical. Now, you rack the slide back, taking it off the slide lock, and you can separate your slide and your lower receiver. Now what I generally find is actually better is that you grip the slide from the front. Okay, so this is the front of the slide. There is some grips just here on both sides, there's grips on the rear as well. But I find if you grip the slide at the front, you can then grab it and you pull it forward and the whole thing just slides clean off. Now, when it comes to your hop-up device, this is going to be quite hard to actually show, but basically you're looking for a small wheel that is situated a few millimeters behind the main spring. This is the recoil spring, I do believe, and there is a wheel just where my finger is. I don't know if the camera can focus in on that, but that is the wheel that you used to dial your hop-up. Even if you get your hop-up to be absolutely spot on, remember this is a handgun. Its barrel is literally only, I'm looking at the website here, and the barrel length is 90mm. It's not a great deal, so you're not going to get a great deal of range out of this. But you can set your hop up and you can get those BBs going out relatively in the right direction. But the dial itself is very stiff. You might think that's a bit of a problem. No, that's actually how we want it. Because that means, like I said earlier, this is a very violent process. This slide is racking backwards and forwards as you're firing. So you don't want your hop-up wheel to suddenly start moving under the pressures of firing this gun. So you'd be firing through your magazine, you get like 5 or 6 shots through, and then your hop-up was just going to go, and your BBs aren't going to reach 5 inches, let alone, 15, 20 meters. So that's a good idea, that's good. Now on the Glock 17, which I'll do a review of that one some other time as well, same thing. It has a wheel device just sat there and it really does work. I would say that you can actually strip these down a lot further. I am not going to, because my policy is if it works, leave it. So remember, this isn't going to outrange much of anything. It might outrange other handguns, but to be really speaking about it, it's not really going to do that much. So you can buy upgraded parts for these. You can buy an extra barrel. You can, I do believe there's a thread on the end of the barrel here. You could put a suppressor onto the end of this and mount a longer barrel. You could probably make it an MP5K length barrel. Would that increase the range? Possibly a little bit. Would it increase your accuracy? Again, it's gas, so it's a bit hit and miss on the accuracy. I would say it would bring your accuracy in a little bit, but It's not going to make a fantastic weapon. It's not going to be your main weapon, for instance. Now the lower receiver is still sat in the position with the notch marked upwards, and to be honest with you, bar the trigger contacts, which are at the back here, there's diddly squat in this. You can actually see all the way through. It's next to nothing, next to important. So, you set your hop up. How are you going to reattach your two pieces? Right, well, you can see at the rear of the slide there is two marks here. You actually, these slide onto the onto the grip low receiver. So what you do is you just line it up like so, push it till it mounts onto the rails, push it all the way back until you feel it hit something. That is now ready to slide back. Engage the slide lock. Now you can push, hopefully this is the part that normally gets me, you can now in theory push this back to the seated position, which it has, just gone straight back to normal position, get the mag release, and there you go. That gun will have fired. Now that's your gun set up. So internally speaking, very simple. I mean, they're probably copying the internals of this particular gun off the Glock series. All the WE guns are going to have roughly the same kind of theory behind how they fire. So internally, unless you're going to upgrade it, it's not really that much difference. This is actually something that normally people don't really give monkeys about. Magazines aren't that, well, they are important, but they're usually buried inside a gun. They are, you know, just something that, you know, you may have some sat on your pouches somewhere, but they're always hidden away, you know. And to be honest with you, with the Glock series, the magazines are all black. I've had that Glock now 2.5 years now, and its magazines are starting to look like they've been around for 2.5 years, scratched and worn. But like I say, they're buried in a gun when they're in use, and they're buried in the pouches when they're not in use, so nobody's going to see them. However, the XDM magazines are finished in a stainless steel finish, so they don't scratch. And I like this. This is how sad I get when it comes to airsoft. This actually floats my boat quite a bit. It's a very nice magazine. It's a very smooth finish. Well, it's not going to be a smooth finish, but even when you scratch it, when you're loading this thing up, it's not going to scratch. So these magazines are absolutely brilliant. Like I said, I've had this magazine, you know, 2 years now, something like that, and it's been in and out of this gun quite a bit. It's the only magazine I've got, because like I said, the handguns, whether it be the XDM, the 40, or the Glock 17, they're going to be a last-ditch weapon. So I'm not going to put a great deal of money into these things. But this magazine's fantastic. You know, it's showing no signs of wear and tear. So, how do you load the BBs into this magazine, you're asking? Well, as you can see, it already has BBs inside it, which is the reason why I will not be firing it off inside here. I don't want to get a rebound. So, quite simply speaking, there is a spring just at the bottom here. It's compressed at the moment because the BB's obviously on in it. When this is empty, this spring and this piece of plastic just above the spring is all the way up the top here. It pushes the BBs up. As you fire, obviously a BB goes off on its merry way, and this will click up one BB position. And as you fire, it just goes up, forcing the BBs up into the gun. To load the BBs, you take your fingernail, literally, and there's a lip on this piece of plastic, and pull it all the way back to the seated position. And as you can see, there is the window for the BBs. At the bottom here, it's a little bit wider. So what you do is, you pull it past that point, lay it on its side here like so, get a speed loader, and just speed load BBs into the magazine. To be honest, it can be a bit fiddly. In the heat of battle, after you've exchanged fire, and you've also used one of these, which means you're on the last ditch weapons and all that, it's going to take a while to, you know, load up this ammunition. Probably some people who use these a lot more than I do can get it down a lot quicker, get the time down a lot quicker. I personally, I fire through a magazine, I run, I bug out. And if I get to a position where I know I'm pretty safe, I can reload my primary, and I can reload this in a time that I can, you know, be careful with it. What you don't want, which is what unfortunately I find quite a lot with these, is you end up with a missed BB. Because these stack next to each other, as you're loading the ammunition in, you can end up with a gap in the chain of BBs. It's not what you want, because the gun will, you're wasting a space, for instance. you want to get your maximum amount of BBs into these things, because it's going to be one of these that's going to kill off the enemy, hopefully. So you have to really take your time loading these things up. Once you get them loaded up and they're stacked up like so, it's quite a simple process. You just put the magazine in, rack the slide back, and that loads your first BB in, and the gun will fire. So externally speaking, these magazines are brilliant. They're absolutely fantastic. The only downside, slight downside, I've heard a lot of people having these problems. I personally haven't, but you have a plastic, I can't remember what the gizmo called here, but this is all plastic. This black bit here is plastic. So if you drop this and it lands head first, probably on concrete, you're going to snap the plastic, and that makes the whole magazine useless. Now, I don't know if you can buy these parts separately. I dare say you probably can in some countries, being the United Kingdom. I doubt it very much, but and if you can, it's probably for some extortionate price. I do believe magazine costs are around the £20+ mark. There's sometimes they sometimes come up on offer. The likes of Land Warrior and 01 are usually selling these quite a lot, and like I said, they're usually £20+. Considering it's an all metal magazine and it's got a whole gas, it's not a bad price, to be honest with you. You know, you generally find your gas magazines are going to be more expensive than your electric magazines. If you take the gas M4 over the electric M4, your magazine cost for a gas gun is going to be £20+. If you're paying for an electric magazine, because it's basically either going to have a spring in it to make it a mid cap or low cap, or in my case a real cap, it's going to be dirt cheap. The gas magazine is going to be more expensive, but that's just, you know, part and parcel. Okay, so conclusions from me on the WE XDM 45. Well, as a whole package, this gun is fantastic. It's got great looks. It's actually quite usable in all conditions, whether you have gloves on your hands or not. You've got a good grip on the pistol grip here. To be honest with you, you're not going to find really that much of a better handgun, in my opinion. I haven't had a hold on some of the other guns, the TM guns, for instance, TM handguns. But as a whole, this is a great gun. As you all know now, the magazine is something that I really do like. I wish all magazines for guns came out with this kind of finish on them. When it comes to me using this gun, I've had no dramas with it. It hasn't fallen to pieces, and it hasn't vented on me. I haven't used it in the middle of winter, but I have used it during autumn and spring when the temperature can be a bit, you know, hit and miss, shall we say. I wouldn't expect fantastic results in the range department. It is a handgun after all. The inner barrel length is only a few inches, but as a last-ditch weapon, it's going to sit on your holster somewhere, sit on you somewhere. It's going to be 9 times out of 10 you may not even need it. However, if you do need it, you've got 26 rounds that you can put down at the enemy up close and personal. And even if you don't kill them, you can make them stop doing what they're doing, which is either advancing towards you, or just make them get their heads down so that you can bug out and replace your primary weapons, magazines and whatnot. But anyway, back to the XDM. Like I say, fantastic gun. The internal score I would give it, due to the fact, like I said, I've had no problems with it, I'd give it a nice 9 out of 10. You know, it probably could be improved with some aftermarket parts. You could add a longer inner barrel into this and put a suppressor on the end of it, but then you're trying to holster what could be, you know, a longer handgun, so it's catch-22 there. The magazine's as good as it gets, so I'll give that a nice 10 out of 10. In fact, no, I'll give that a 9.5 out of 10, because, like I said earlier, this plastic part on here can break, and if that breaks, this magazine is useless. As a whole package, I would give this gun about 9 out of 10. It's my kind of gun. Looks aggressive, actually does something, it's quite useful. If you want this gun, it's very, very good. If you're in the market for a handgun, you really have to look at an XDM. So, like I say, really good gun. Anyhow, that'll be the end of the review of the Springfield / WE XDM 45. Hopefully I'm going to be banging out some more videos very, very soon on kit reviews as well as some more gun reviews. However, I have got an idea for a video review of something a little bit different. It's not a piece of kit, it's not a gun, it ain't me, but it is something that I want to put out there, so hopefully over the next few days I will be able to give more information out on the Facebook site. When this video pops up on YouTube, feel free to drop your comments below on the YouTube page. Likewise, add them on the Facebook page, because it'll obviously be shared onto the Facebook page. If you've got any suggestions on how to improve these videos, or any further equipment that you would like to see reviewed, get in touch with me. I would love to review whatever you produce, well, within reason. I don't think I'll be reviewing the minigun anytime soon, but actually I want to get into reviewing airsoft stuff, shall we say, in a big way. So hopefully we can start something up and start really reviewing a lot of kit out there in the airsoft world. So anyway, till then, have fun, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.